Is the world ignoring China, while some of the most unreal landscapes on Earth remain hidden in plain sight? Places so extreme, they look computer-generated, yet exist far beyond cities, roads, and familiar maps. Mountains twist, stone rises against gravity, and entire regions defy the rules we think nature must follow. These are not legends, not myths, and not visual effects. This is unseen China, where wonders that don't seem real exist anyway. The village of Hutuan on Shengshan Island is considered one of the planet's strangest places, where nature has completely reclaimed the human habitat, turning every house into a maze draped in green vines. Once home to over 2,000 residents in a thriving fishing community, the area was abandoned in the 1990s and gradually consumed by dense, uncontrolled vegetation. Unlike ghost towns ruined by war or drought, Hutuan exhibits a rare zombie status, where the boundary between human civilization and untamed nature has been entirely erased. What happens when you step into a house abandoned for 3 decades? In Hutuan, many homes still contain their original beds. Dining tables and cabinets from the 1990s, now overgrown with moss and vines that creep through shattered windows. Amid the overgrown ruins lives a man named Chu, age 65, who chose to stay with his wife in their original home and now serves as the village's living witness. After Hutuan's photos went viral in 2015, Mr. Chu began welcoming tourists, cooking seafood, and selling drinks as the sole guide to this devoured village. Instead of blasting mountains or tunneling underground, China adopted a non-traditional solution by building the Yongwu Road directly across the surface of Lake Poyang, the country's largest freshwater lake, defying standard engineering logic. To ensure perfect surface stability, the project integrates floating pontoons and underwater supports, while preserving the delicate ecosystem of the surrounding migratory bird sanctuary. Remarkably, when lake levels rise to 61 feet, the entire road becomes submerged, creating the surreal illusion of cars gliding like boats across an endless sea. Stretching over 3.1 miles, every technical element from elevation to drainage was precisely engineered to maintain year-round operability even during flood season. Serving as the sole roadway link to the 2,200-year-old ancient town of Wucheng, this daring design ensures lifeline access to a once isolated region. On its opening day, over 8,000 vehicles converge simultaneously, turning the structure into a global sensation for both engineering audacity and visual wonder. Hidden deep in the arid Qaidam Basin, Emerald Lake is not a pure natural wonder, but an industrial relic formed from abandoned mineral pits once operated by the Daqidan chemical plant, and later filled by groundwater and brine. How can an industrial site become a global visual phenomenon? The answer lies in the surreal hues of its salt ponds, where extremely high concentrations of lithium, potassium, and magnesium produce colors ranging from Tiffany blue to emerald green and amber gold, earning it the nickname God's Palette. The area also features rare geological traits such as deep blue holes and heart-shaped lakes scattered among wind-eroded Yadan landforms shaped over millions of years. With intense salinity and a thick white salt crust at the bottom, the lake surface mirrors the sky and nearby snow peaks, creating a sky mirror effect far beyond that of ordinary salt flats. Despite its sparkling beauty, the lake contains so much salt that it could hypothetically poison over 343 billion people if consumed, turning it into a deadly oasis disguised as paradise. Larongga appears like a sea of red, with thousands of tiny wooden homes packed tightly across the hill's sides, forming a massive living mosaic deep in a remote mountain valley. At an extreme altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, where oxygen is scarce and breathing becomes a challenge, every inhale is a testament to the enduring power of spiritual devotion. How did a place that began in 1980 with just 10 disciples become the world's largest Buddhist academy? The answer lies in decades of grassroots effort, as monks and nuns used their own savings and hands to build each red wooden home. Even the most senior scholars, known as Khenpos, live in the same two-room wooden huts as the students, maintaining a unique flat hierarchy with no distinction in living conditions. This is a strictly vegan city, where meat, alcohol, and tobacco are entirely forbidden, even for visitors, preserving the valley's atmosphere of absolute purity. What visitors remember most is the synchronized chanting of tens of thousands of voices echoing across the valley from dawn until dusk, creating a meditative symphony found nowhere else on Earth. Blue tears is the name given to a blue bioluminescent phenomenon appearing in coastal waters around Pingtan Island, where dark seawater lights up instantly when disturbed. The glow is produced by marine plankton that emit light under physical stimulation, such as waves, hand movement, or human footsteps in shallow water. Blue tears can only be observed in near total darkness, because even minimal artificial light is enough to overwhelm the faint bioluminescent signal. The phenomenon does not occur year-round and typically peaks from April through August, controlled by seawater temperature, ocean currents, and plankton density. Dongchuan Red Land is one of the largest and most distinctive red soil landscapes in the world, often ranked just behind the famous Redlands of Brazil. Until the mid-1990s, the area remained largely isolated and unknown, before Chinese photographers revealed its striking scenery to a wider audience. The intense red color here is not typical farmland soil, but the result of extremely high concentrations of iron and aluminum oxidized over millions of years. Amid this vast sea of crimson terrain, a single ancient tree can sometimes be seen standing alone atop a hill, creating a powerful visual contrast. This unusual landscape has since become a regular presence in top 10 lists of China's most photogenic locations, featured by international photography platforms and magazines. Tre Can Lake is one of the largest freshwater lakes in China, known for the winter fishing ritual where massive nets haul up hundreds of tons of fish at once from a frozen surface. Each net stretches roughly 1.2 miles beneath thick ice and is pulled entirely by horsepower, with giant horses serving as the only engines instead of modern machinery. Every winter, thousands of people step onto the ice to repeat a fishing method dating back to the Liao dynasty around 900 AD. Hundreds of ice holes are drilled with precise spacing to encircle fish schools beneath the vast lake, forming a harvesting system that appears almost geological. During only a few festival weeks, over 2 million pounds of fish are harvested without depletion, as the lake's ecosystem remains balanced through natural regeneration in extreme winter conditions. Tarim Populus Euphratica Forest is an ancient grove where trees survive for thousands of years in extreme aridity, with annual rainfall below 2 inches and sandstorms capable of burying entire ecosystems. After dying, these trees do not decay, but remain standing for roughly 1,000 more years, like silver skeletons across the desert horizon. The forest borders the Taklamakan Desert, nicknamed the Sea of Death, the second largest shifting sand desert on Earth, with dunes constantly reshaped by wind. Amid one of the driest regions on the planet, mirror-like lakes appear reflecting golden canopies from tiny oases surrounded by endless dunes. Water in the Tarim Basin is so saline that most plants die immediately, but these poplars absorb the brine filter salt through their trunks and expel it as a survival mechanism. Golden crowns curve around the shoreline, forming fluid shapes on the sand where life and decay coexist in the silhouette of an ancient forest. Kiandao Lake is a massive artificial reservoir formed when a valley spanning hundreds of square miles was completely flooded to serve a nationally strategic hydroelectric project. Seen from above, 1,078 forested islands rise from turquoise water, creating a fragmented spatial structure rarely found in natural lake systems. A distinct golden shoreline band appears at the base of each island, produced by exposed soil and rock after water levels stabilized, directly separating forest cover from open water. In 1959, the government deliberately submerged the entire valley, including 2 ancient cities and 27 towns, solely to obtain electricity. It is classified as China's cleanest freshwater source, with purity high enough to be regarded as a long-term, global-scale drinking water reserve. Yadin landform is a rare desert terrain shaped by millions of years of wind erosion, producing thousands of rock formations resembling fortresses, warships, or primitive creatures. Many areas show these formations arranged in long parallel rows, appearing like a massive fleet frozen within a barren landscape. Intense red soil, the complete absence of vegetation, and heavily eroded stone pillars create a surface closely matching the physical characteristics of Mars. Golden clay formations rise vertically from vivid blue lakes within the desert, a phenomenon rarely observed under prolonged arid conditions. Certain lakes sit inside circular geological structures, displaying a deep, matcha green color and eye-like shapes when viewed from above. During winter, when air temperatures drop below -4 degrees Fahrenheit, these lakes remain unfrozen due to extremely high salinity. Red Beach in Panjin is globally known for the seasonal color shifts of Suaeda salsa, a salt-tolerant plant that acts as a natural color filter across a vast marsh ecosystem. This is a beach without sand, where the entire surface is saline mud covered by billions of tiny plants that turn the land into a living red carpet. The color change is not a normal leaf transition, but a survival-driven chemical reaction that causes roughly 51 square miles to flare like an ocean of fire at peak intensity. Within this dark red expanse stands a single wooden house, isolated in a crimson sea where the ground is not solid earth, but a living surface no human foot can ever touch. Because the marsh is unstable and highly dangerous, people move only along wooden walkways, which from above resemble biological channels running through a massive living system. The red reaches maximum intensity for only about 20 to 30 days from September to early October, and arriving outside this window makes the phenomenon almost vanish. The Hulunbuir grassland covers an area of about 36,000 square miles, larger than the entire territory of Portugal or Hungary, placing a single grassland in China on the scale of a sovereign European country. The Morigeli River, crossing the plain, is recorded by geologists as the most sinuous river in the world, as the almost perfectly flat terrain suppresses straight flow and forces the water into countless tight bends over short distances. Each year, Hulunbuir produces millions of tons of fresh grass, sufficient to sustain more than 10 million livestock at the same time across an uninterrupted open landscape. This grazing scale is so vast that Earth observation satellites can detect shifts in grassland color following the movement patterns of large herds. Historically, Hulunbuir also functioned as a natural military testing ground, where nomadic powers, such as the Khitan and Mongol empires, developed cavalry forces capable of unprecedented mobility enabled by flat terrain and abundant resources. Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon Glass Bridge held the title of the longest and highest glass pedestrian bridge in the world when it opened in 2016. Built to serve visitors in the Grand Canyon area. The bridge stretches across a canyon nearly 1,000 feet deep, directly connecting two vertical cliff faces with no support pillars beneath. Beyond walking, it is also home to the world's highest public bungee jump with a drop of about 935 feet. To demonstrate safety, officials invited 30 volunteers to strike the glass repeatedly with sledgehammers and later drove a fully loaded SUV across panels that had already cracked to prove the structure could still bear extreme weight. In the early morning or late afternoon, thick fog fills the canyon, making the bridge almost invisible, leaving only the sight of people appearing to float in mid-air. The karst sinkhole system is a geological structure eroded over millions of years, where massive sinkholes and caves connect to form a three-dimensional network deep beneath limestone mountains. Over 650 feet above the river lies a giant stone arch that pierces through solid mountain, wide enough for a small aircraft to fly through without touching the walls. Between April and September, sunlight passes through a skylight sinkhole and creates a colossal beam that shoots straight down into the underground river like a natural laser. Hidden within this system is a chamber recognized as the largest cave room on Earth, capable of housing dozens of Boeing jetliners or an entire football stadium with room to spare. On clear days, the water remains emerald green, but after a single heavy rain, it can suddenly turn bright red or amber orange due to upstream mineral runoff. Elephant Trunk Hill is the most recognizable symbol of Guilin, famous for its natural shape resembling a giant elephant bending down to drink water by the riverbank. In nature, limestone erosion commonly creates holes in rock, but erosion precise enough to form a long trunk, a solid body, and an opening positioned like an elephant's eye is an extremely low mathematical probability. Few people realize that inside the hill lies a cool cave system maintained year-round and currently used to store thousands of gallons of Guilin's traditional rice wine. During full moon nights, reflections from the river surface and the hollowed rock create an optical effect where 3 moons can be seen at the same time from this single location. In Huping, China, the word Tiankeng refers to giant karst sinkholes, often compared to heavenly pits, where the landscape drops into vertical chasms among forested mountains. Unlike typical sinkholes formed by underground caves collapsing from below, Huping is the only known cluster on Earth created entirely by rainfall erosion from above an unprecedented geological phenomenon. Within an area of roughly 9 square miles, 5 interconnected sinkholes form a hole within a hole structure resembling massive skylights carved into the limestone terrain. Rui Bridge is a modern pedestrian bridge in China, identified by its continuously curved form and its direct suspension above a deep canyon, differing completely from conventional straight bridge designs. The bridge is constructed at a height of approximately 460 feet above the canyon floor, equivalent to a structure over 40 stories tall, placing the entire system in strong wind and steep terrain conditions. Most of the walking surface is made of transparent tempered glass, allowing direct visibility to the canyon floor and clearly exposing the vertical separation between the bridge and the ground. Because of its continuous curvature, the projected outline of the bridge changes with viewing angle, and no single geometric axis extends along its full length. This curvature also serves an engineering function, dispersing wind loads and reducing stress concentration across the steel framework under high-altitude conditions. Jiangxia landform in Qishui is one of the largest ancient red rock landscapes, where sandstone layers align in even horizontal bands resembling a geological blueprint. On the near barren rock walls, vegetation grows directly from stone and survives by absorbing moisture from the morning fog. Waterfalls over 230 feet high cascade straight down the face of red cliffs stretching thousands of feet across, forming shimmering curtains of suspended water. It's estimated that more than 1,000 waterfalls, large and small, pour across the area, turning a typically arid rockscape into an unexpectedly lush ecosystem. On clear days, refracted sunlight creates floating rainbow rings in the air, a phenomenon locals revere as the Buddha's halo. Mount Jianglang is defined by 3 massive peaks rising vertically from the ground, standing parallel like stone bamboo shoots, or the Chinese character Chuan. This entire formation is the result of millions of years of natural weathering, fracturing, and erosion created without any human intervention or modification. The ascent is not a trail, but a series of steps carved directly into the rock face, reaching slopes close to 88 degrees and turning upward movement into a physical ordeal. Despite the sheer and barren cliffs, isolated ecosystems survive atop these towering stone columns, supporting rare plant species completely separated from the world below. Taining Jiangxia is described by geologists as a Danxia cave museum on a global scale, defined by an extreme concentration of caves and ultra-narrow canyons. The landscape contains more than 130 gorges and dozens of tight stone corridors with sections so narrow that an adult must hold their breath and tilt the body about 45 degrees to pass. Inside a massive inverted triangular cave, the ancient Ganlu temple stands supported by a single wooden pillar rising dozens of feet, carrying the entire upper structure for centuries. The cliff faces are carved into tens of thousands of tiny cavities alongside giant hollows, forming a honeycomb-like surface suspended across vertical rock walls. These cliffs function as a vertical city, where hanging tombs set into rock niches preserve burial sites dating back thousands of years. Mati Temple Grottos is a complex of Buddhist caves and temples carved directly into red cliff faces in Gansu province. The site includes more than 70 caves and shrines spread across different sections of the mountain range, containing Buddha statues, relief carvings, and centuries-old murals. To reach the highest sanctuaries, ancient builders carved small holes into the rock to serve as handholds and footholds along the vertical surface. Access to the grotto's system remains limited to foot travel or horseback routes along the mountainside, with no direct road connection even in the 21st century. Enshi Grand Canyon is known as the Colorado of the East due to its vertically developed karst terrain, shaped over hundreds of millions of years of geological upheaval. A limestone pillar, over 490 feet tall and barely 13 feet wide at its narrowest point, stands alone in a deep chasm, as if pinned from the sky, yet it has withstood every earthquake. The mountain trail here is not anchored to any slope, but is directly bolted into vertically fractured rock faces with no footing to distribute weight. The suspended walkway hangs like a bridge without foundations, yet supports thousands of visitors daily. China also installed a giant escalator along the cliff to carry visitors from summit to valley, right where no mechanical system should even be possible. Furong Ancient Town in Hunan Province is considered one of China's most unique ancient settlements, not built along the riverbank like Fenghuang, but perched on a cliff where a massive waterfall plunges directly into the Yu River at its center. The entire town occupies the top of a waterfall, roughly 200 feet high and 130 feet wide, creating an almost illogical construction site by conventional architectural standards. Its stilted Diajiaolu houses are anchored to the limestone cliff by slender wooden pillars, with foundations carved directly into the solid rock face by ancient builders. The environment maintains nearly 100% humidity year-round due to constant spray from the falls, yet wooden structures estimated at over 2,000 years old have not rotted. Zhangye Dangxia landform is a rare, multicolored mountain system often regarded as one of the most surreal landscapes not only in China but across the world. The formations began taking shape more than 24 million years ago as layers of red sandstone and minerals were deposited, compressed, and folded by intense tectonic activity. Because mineral content and sedimentation rates changed over time, no two sections display exactly the same color patterns. What makes the site unusual is that its colors are not fixed and can shift noticeably within as little as 10 minutes, depending on the angle and strength of sunlight. After rainfall, when the rock surface remains wet, water deepens the hues and heightens contrast, making the entire landscape appear freshly painted. Fanjingshan Mushroom Stone is a natural rock formation known for its illogical mushroom-like shape, standing completely isolated amid steep mountain terrain and sheer slopes. The structure rises about 33 feet tall, carrying a massive cap weighing dozens of tons, suspended above a narrow supporting base that appears visually unstable. Mushroom stone is not a single solid block, but is formed from countless thin rock layers stacked together, creating a stratified structure similar to tightly pressed ancient pages. Reaching the area on foot, without cable transport, requires climbing more than 8,888 stone steps across steep gradients. Bengxi Water Cave is one of the largest flooded cave systems in China, known for a natural underground boat route stretching nearly 2 miles, considered the longest fully navigable cave waterway in the world. The water inside averages only about 5 feet deep, yet the ceiling remains high enough for people to drift for miles underground without contact, creating a sensation of empty space beneath the surface. The cave formed within limestone, estimated to be around 500 million years old, where massive stalactites and columns grow far beyond the scale typical of most cave systems. Constant humidity from the underground river causes stone surfaces to reflect light intensely, producing a continuous shimmering effect as boats move slowly through the chambers. Loping rapeseed flower fields are known as the largest sea of yellow flowers in the world, with vast canola fields stretching endlessly toward the horizon. In certain areas, the flowers are not planted on flat land, but arranged in spiral terraces shaped by karst sinkholes reaching depths of about 160 feet. While much of China still experiences late winter cold, the fields here bloom as early as February, making this one of the earliest spring landscapes in the region. Each year, billions of bees are transported from across the country, and their collective buzzing forms a deep, ambient sound that fills the entire valley. The spectacle remains at peak intensity for only about 21 to 30 days each year, giving Luoping the feeling of a mirage that appears only for those who arrive at the right moment. Huangshan is one of the most iconic mountain ranges in China, long serving as a central symbol in Chinese culture, poetry, and traditional landscape painting. Its pine trees grow directly from sheer rock cracks with unusual shapes, including the famous Yingke Song, whose form resembles open arms welcoming visitors. Reaching the summits requires climbing more than 60,000 stone steps carved by hand into the mountainsides, making it one of the longest and steepest stairway systems in the world. Within a single view, snow-covered pine branches can appear above, while golden seas of cloud fill the valleys below under the light of sunset. Across history, Huangshan has inspired more than 20,000 poems and millions of ink paintings devoted to its peaks and mist-filled landscapes. Tian Shan Mountain is known as the Jewel of northeastern China, defined by granite terrain, fractured into thousands of sharp, freestanding peaks. The count of 999 peaks forms an extreme geological matrix resembling isolated stone blocks rather than a continuous mountain range rising above clouds. Within this system stands a peak about 230 feet tall, shaped like a seated Maitreya Buddha in a precise meditation posture. This figure was not carved by humans, but formed by wind, rain, and erosion over millions of years, sculpting facial features, shoulders, and posture with striking accuracy. Ancient temples and Taoist structures do not rest on flat ground, but emerge directly from cliff faces or balance on the narrowest pointed summits. When clouds flood the area, the 999 peaks appear as floating islands, replicating scenes once considered fictional in classical ink paintings. Mount Tai, also known as the Eastern Sacred Peak, ranks first among China's 5 sacred mountains and was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987, directly linked to imperial authority throughout Chinese history. In the past, 72 emperors ascended the mountain to perform the Fengshan rites to heaven and earth, regarding it as the closest place to the celestial realm accessible to humans. The ascent follows a stone stairway of more than 7,200 steps, carved entirely by hand and extending from the base to an elevation of about 5,070 feet, once the only route without mechanical assistance. It is difficult to believe that the entire massive volume of stone was transported and installed solely by human labor along sheer rock faces. At the cloud-covered summit, the Bixia Temple complex clings to the edge of a steep cliff, built from stone and metal with roofs cast from dozens of tons of bronze to withstand powerful winds and lightning at extreme altitude.